Tomorrow night is the 4th of July. Happy birthday, United States of America. And we got a good fight in Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio. The champion, Abdullah Mason, defending in his hometown against Albert Bell after Joe Cordina got set up on a camera, messed with, and had to punch someone's lights out. Shout out to Joe Cordina. Sorry that you missed out on your title shot because of some nonsense like that. But to me, the event is now upgraded because it's an all-Ohio fight against Albert Bell, a guy who sparred many rounds with Abdullah Mason, knew him since he was a little kid, an undefeated 28-0 fighter who never got his shot at 130 pounds when he deserved a world title shot, got released by Top Rank. Now he's getting his title shot against Abdullah Mason. I gave some thoughts on this yesterday, but I'm going to let you start then. What are your initial thoughts on this fight in this matchup, this lightweight title defense in Cleveland tomorrow? On TNT, the first show to be broadcast on TNT for their new venture into boxing.
Well, first, I like the original fight. I like Cordina. I believe this was set up as a homecoming for Abdullah Mason. 4th of July, it's a tough date on which to do a fight, but it happens to fall on a Saturday. There's no really competitive fights happening. They already did all the shenanigans with the White House card and the UFC, so there's not really competition on the night for this fight, which I thought was stellar from Top Rank to place it there. You've got a British fighter coming into a very classic American city in Cleveland, facing the hometown boy in front of his hometown crowd. Now, the way boxing was once promoted, it's seldom promoted that way anymore, and I miss it. I've said this before, and I miss it. And not because, and I think the reason that it's not done this way sometimes is because of the racist residue of how one would promote a fight based on race or geography, nationality, and such. But for a 4th of July card, that was kind of a classic British fighter, American fighter, Cleveland City, Saturday night. This guy, Abdullah Mason, really should be getting more shine than what he's getting. Fans are becoming aware of him more and more each fight. He's a world champion, the world champion, and this would have been a great platform and narrative for them to sell around the holiday. So for Cordina to drop out, as to does that narrative drop out. But to be fair, it really wasn't being sold that way in the first place. This is what I would have done, but maybe that's more of an 80s style boxing promotion. I'm glad, on the one hand, that Top Rank has put him at the top of a card on a Saturday like this, but I'm unhappy to the degree that I don't feel like he's getting the promotion that he deserves. I feel like he's in a tougher fight now than the Cordina fight with less pub. In Cleveland, in Ohio, they're all going to be dialed in and tuned in. But I'm not hearing enough about this fight. I'm not hearing enough about this fighter. And the challenge ahead of Abdullah Mason now is so much greater than the fight promotion suggests. This fight should be huge. This fight should be the one where everybody is looking at Abdullah like this is the clearinghouse for him. This is the true test. This is the one that will let us know if the kid's the goods. It's a late replacement fighter with whom he's had numerous rounds in sparring, a fighter whose physicality will be a challenge in his height and his reach. I say this fight is decided on distance and who dictates it. If he allows for the distance to be dictated to him and Mason, then it's going to be a long night. It's going to be a tough night. They know each other. They've never fought, obviously, in a competitive format before, in the ring, under the hot lights and all the pressure and everything that goes into that. But the fact that there's no build-up to the fight and it all happened last minute, I think that helps take the pressure off of Bell and keeps it on Abdullah. Like, Bell doesn't have a lot of time to think about it. He hasn't had to do all the press or any of the build-up. He hasn't done a camp for Mason. So he's going to come in free-flowing. He's going to come in based on what they've experienced in sparring. He's going to come in like, hey, this is an opportunity that fell from the sky that I wasn't expecting. And he wasn't coming out of off the couch. He was getting ready for July 18th anyway, so it's not like he wasn't in shape and preparing to fight. Now he just got a better fight, a better opportunity with an opponent that he knows, and he's the nobody in the fight that nobody really knows. It's all reward for him, and he hasn't had a lot of time to think about the risk or the pressure. That is an essential that's also in his favor. This fight is one that I think isn't going to get the attention it's due until it's over.
Well, to be fair, most fights just aren't really promoted well these days. I don't think Enes and Zayas last week, which big time delivered, wasn't really promoted that well. A lot of fights on DAZN, but to be fair though, it is the inaugural fight on TNT. So that is a pretty big stage. They are putting Abdullah Mason as the launch fighter on this card, and it's a good card overall with Scooter Davis, Tiger Johnson, Bruce Shushu Carrington, and Abdullah Mason headlining. So it's the first card where Terrence Crawford, Timothy Bradley, and Sean Porter will be on broadcast together. I'm looking forward to seeing that, even though I'll be live on my channel and have the fight on mute, and we'll have to kind of double back after. But yeah, I agree that, but to be fair, again, most fights aren't really well promoted these days, and at least this one is going to come with the attached viewership of cable television with TNT. That being said, I think, this is a tough fight for Abdullah Mason, and when you say this fight will come down to the distance, well, I think that's going to be an issue for Abdullah Mason in this fight. He has a 74-inch reach, which for comparison's sake is significantly longer than Devin Haney or Keyshawn Davis, who clock in around 70 to 70 and a half inch reach. Much longer than Gervonta Davis, longer than Shakur Stevenson, which is around, I think, 69-inch reach or so. So he has a real gift at a 6'2" wingspan, at 5'8", 5'9", but hasn't really learned how to use it just yet. He throws every jab hard and stiff. He doesn't really feint. His base is wide. So he is still a diamond in the rough who won that fight against Sam Noakes on talent with his power and speed and his grit. And he's still a diamond in the rough compared to that. And we'll get to a comparison later in the video where yesterday, and of course, as we're one to do, we get some blowback on it, where I said I think his upside could be higher or is higher than all those guys I just mentioned. But all those guys I mentioned know how to use their distance better than Abdullah Mason. They're smarter than Abdullah Mason and got hit a little bit less than Abdullah Mason did at this stage of their careers. So, but we'll get to that part later and keep it right now on Mason and Bell. So to your point about it being from the distance, I think that's going to favor Albert Bell, maybe even for a significant portion of this fight. And the reason why I'm still picking Abdullah Mason to win by stoppage in the second half of this fight is I know he has that bite down. I know he has that grit. So even if he's getting touched up on the outside, outboxed, I think Albert Bell may even stun him with a couple of shots, because even though he only has 9 knockouts in 28 fights, if he catches you at the end of his shots, he has some pop. He will get your respect. He will get your attention in there. But I'd expect Mason to bite down and get to the second and third layer of their exchanges to find that shot and to chop that tree down and go to the body. He's a very good body puncher as well, Abdullah Mason. But what gives me some concern about that, when I was thinking about this yesterday and I'm seeing in the press conference Albert Bell smile with him, get him to dap him up, show a picture of them when they were kids and when he was a kid and Albert Bell is a older man and everything. It's like, man, he's buttering you up. Don't go for it. The less violent your mentality is in this fight, Mason, because you're the one. Even though he has such a gift in reach, he actually has an inch longer reach than Albert Bell. But Albert Bell, the savvy 33-year-old veteran, he's going to know how to use that distance better, and that's why this fight will be pivotal to Abdullah Mason's development. But don't go for it. Don't play too nice. And that is a concern for Abdullah Mason. The less violent your mentality is, and the less violent, and Albert Bell, he's gonna let some combinations go. But the less violent this fight is, that gives Albert Bell more of a time to build up a lead on the scorecards in this fight and put you behind the 8 ball to where you're gonna have to press and get a knockout. And that could get very dicey for Mason, and that might just be how he has to win this fight. But again, Raheem, what do you think of that? Him going for the pre-fight pleasantries and not realizing this guy is here to slide in as a 2-week replacement and lift that world title off of your shoulder, young man. So don't go for the okie doke.
I believe that Abdullah Mason's contemporaries think he's mentally manipulatable. We saw what Keyshawn Davis did to him when I called it bullying. I called it him trying to push the kid around publicly and force a certain dynamic that makes Keyshawn the boss. Now you see the soft soap approach, which is yet another kind of mental manipulation to see if it works. Oh, we're buddies, we're pals, we're just going in there, to give the fans a good scrap, but we're all friendly. I watched the press conference, and I will say that my immediate reaction was different from yours in that I like the tone. I like both fighters. I feel like it is an advantage for Bell coming in for the reasons I stated at the top of the show, but also because he is genuinely relaxed. I think he does genuinely appreciate the opportunity. I don't think Mason is underestimating the challenge, but he is, in fact, matter of fact about what he's got to go in there and do. However, whether he's voicing it or not, I hope that he recognizes that this is a step up from the fight he was preparing for. That this is a more complicated, difficult, I'd say even more talented opponent. And because they've got this experience with each other, it can either help Mason or make this fight more difficult. If the fight had been billed this way from the beginning and both guys had 3 months or however long in camp to prepare for each other and they knew that that's what the fight was coming, I'd say that advantage is Mason. Because there's a short time between the fight being announced and the fight taking place, I say that advantage is Bell, again, for the reasons I stated at the top of the show, because he's going in relaxed, ready, confident, feeling like his experience with Mason, he's not facing an unknown entity, but also very little pressure on him, and he's gotten a gift in what he can attain from a victory on the 11th, on the 4th, as opposed to what he could have attained from a victory on the 18th. This distance thing that you pulled on, I think it is maybe the most important element of the fight physically, because as you said, Mason has the longer reach, and in a previous fight I talked about who's the longer fighter, and we got a lot of discussion in the comments, and this is yet another example about it's not the inches on your limbs, but how you use them. It is about whether or not, I know, just let the comments say it, okay? It is about how you fight with your range, whether or not you're the longer fighter or whether or not this is a fight where the range benefits you. And it benefits Bell because that's how he gets his leverage on his punches. That's how he is successful in fights. He is not like a super heavy-handed puncher. He's not going to be out there winging shots like a Deontay Wilder and hitting you with the sniper, but he can put combinations together at a distance. That is something that a long, tall fighter who is able to use range well, if you hone that skill, it's your tough fight on the outside. And Mason likes short shots as long as his arms are, and maybe that's because he can get more pop on him. Because he's so long, he's got that torque, there's so much arm left when he hits you with it, he punches through the target, and that's where his power comes from. But then you're not punching on the end of your punches. Bell is. So even though you have the longer reach, you got to get inside that. And Bell has shown that he is good at keeping guys, lesser guys, on the end of those punches, stopping them from coming in. He will hit you with the 1-2 if you're trying to come in. He will hold you at range with that, depending on the referee, how much he allows you to get away with that. But he'll keep you at range, stiff-arming you. He also keeps his left hand down. Again, often against lesser fighters or later in the fight as he's trying to get into his rhythm, if he's comfortable. Maybe he keeps his hands up because he respects Mason's offense and won't switch off that way. But it's yet to be seen if that's a habit or a choice. With the frequency he does it, it looks like a habit. that he might have to correct in this fight. But if he doesn't, then right over the top of the jab, Mason's his money shot. It's there for him. I think he can stop Bell if Bell keeps his left hand down like that. But if Bell's defensively responsible, which is not his calling card, based on what I've seen, then, Mason's got a champion shot, a better, more talented, skilled fighter's opportunity to beat this guy. If Bell comes in leveling up, knowing what Mason does and decides to be defensively responsible, force the fight to be on the outside, moves his feet when Mason comes in instead of trade. If he trades, he loses. That's Bell. If he stays on the outside with his footwork and keeps Mason on the end of those punches, we're going to have to see something from Mason that we haven't seen before. That Noakes fight shouldn't have been that close. Mm-hmm. He was fighting a lesser fighter than Bell, a fighter that was doing what Mason wanted to do, and he made the fight harder on himself, Mason did, than it had to be. If he goes in there on Saturday fighting like that, he's in a lot of trouble. And I think Mason's a superior fighter. I think he's the guy with the more star upside. But now, you might consider this hyperbole, but listen, man, I feel like if we had seen Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns before they were superstars, early in their career, this is what might have been. We might be at a crossroads like that. Not that these guys are Tommy Hearns and Sugar Ray, but because the length, the activity from Mason, the busyness like a Sugar Ray Leonard, but the length and the fucking range of a Hearn and as action as this fight could be, you could see something like the level of that entertainment on Saturday night.
You would get that grown man disturbed look from Thomas Hearns for comparing him to Albert Bell if he was with us right now. You know that. But no. But I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. I'm just letting you know how Tommy would take it.
Well, of course. Of course. You know, as he should.
Ray would be more diplomatic.
As he should.
Yes.
But I just spark your imagination, right?
Yeah.
We roll our eyes and stuff like this because these guys haven't had the careers or not even, this is, for me, this is really the beginning for Mason. This is the defining fight for him right now. Mm-hmm. This is a much more important fight for him to win and to see how he wins it if he does in fact win it than it would have been against Cordina. This is way more interesting. We're going to learn a lot more about him than we would have learned from the Cordina fight. And we might be dealing with a Bell who seems to come out of nowhere and all of a sudden becomes a huge part of the conversation. It's that kind of opportunity for him. So, yeah, man.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
Yeah.
That's all you could ask for heading into fight night is some genuine intrigue and anticipation. And that has been upgraded with Cordina being replaced by Albert Bell, along with the other talent on the card. I'm genuinely looking forward to the fights tomorrow night. So, but to your really good technical analysis, I want to add to it. Again, about making and the fight I can remember that you compare that to was Ryan Garcia and Mario Barrios, where their reach was about the same, but you said Garcia knows how to actually fight longer than Mario Barrios, who every pro I talked to heading into that fight says that guy really gives up his height a lot. And you saw what happened on fight night. So you mentioned certain habits by Albert Bell. And another question I have for him in this fight is, and again, I think he's going to give a stiff challenge to Abdullah Mason. Maybe even be ahead in this fight halfway through the fight or so. And that's when I expect Mason to have to learn on the fly, grow and develop. And this will be a big development phase for him in distance control. Albert Bell is going to give him some schooling in that and make him have to learn to use more of that length that he was gifted with. And the body punching too. He's going to have to chop that tree down. And that's why I'm relying a bit, not necessarily on his savvy and his boxing IQ, but between his base talent of power and speed. And that was beautiful what you said. Even though he has long arms, he gets the torque on the shots at the mid-range more than at the long range. I'm expecting him to, at some point, if he's behind, to bite down and say, this fucking belt isn't leaving my side in Cleveland tonight. and cut the distance if he needs to, and start punctuating exchanges in the second and third layers. When he fought Jeremiah Nakathila, who is a guy that took Shakur Stevenson the distance, Raymond Murataya blew him out the water, but he took Shakur Stevenson the distance because he has long-range punching power. Abdullah Mason did well against that style. I think this is a more formidable test than Jeremiah Nakathila, but I saw him chop that tree down and stop Nakathila last year in a few rounds. Albert Bell, I wonder if his foot speed is going to be up to par over 12, and he stands very straight up and doesn't give up his height, but sometimes he'll exchange a little bit. He'll let combinations go. He won't just stick. Let's see if being minimalistic, especially down the stretch of the fight, helps Albert Bell. Not early in the fight. Early in the fight, he's got to make a point to Mason, even push him back in spots. Let him know this is a grown man that he's dealing with in that ring, and that he can get his respect. But down the stretch, can Albert Bell, who does like his left hook, who does like going to the body, can he, when he needs to, keep his hands in his pocket enough and just be a sharpshooter, tie Abdullah Mason up? Does he have the foot speed? He has a good step back game. He will do good taking a step or two back and then resetting back his distance and range. But does he have the foot speed to maneuver around the ring all night? Can he just play sharpshooter? Can he survive a couple of scary moments down the stretch? If he can, we might have a big upset. But again, the speed, the power, the grit, the talent, the promise of Abdullah Mason, I think, can find a way. And then again, with a tall target who will have that chin up a little bit just by his style, who doesn't move his head the most, who doesn't have the greatest foot speed turning you for 12 rounds, I think Mason at some point will break through. He'll have to start from the bottom up, the ground up. He'll have to touch that body and get Bell to get to those second and third layers of their punches and exchanges, and then hurt him over the top with a shot, like you mentioned, maybe dropping the left hand down as the fight goes on and something comes over the top. I'm expecting Mason to pull that out, might even have to pull it out from the fire. Now, if he blows Albert Bell out the water, that would be really impressive. But to the point about comparing him to the guys that are older than him and are dominating those divisions from lightweight to welterweight right now, in Tank and Keyshawn and Devin and Shakur, from getting tutelage from the Floyd Mayweathers and the Andre Wards and the Terrence Crawfords and several others, those guys are savvier than Abdullah Mason. They are more mature with their boxing IQs than him, not just now, but I think even when they were his age. So don't be surprised if the growing pains are shown to you tomorrow night. But here's his much-needed development to get through them and acquire that savvy that he's trying to accumulate the hard way, without the tutelage of great former champions, but just before this fight, out of his basement with his brothers who are green in the corner and his dad who's green in the corner. And I look forward to seeing those growing pains tomorrow night. It's going to be fun to watch.
You know what I call this? Forged by fire.
Yeah,
I'm not the
there you
first
go.
to say it, but yep. I'm the one that will apply it to Mason's career thus far, and probably going forward, for much of what you just said at the end of your comments. Yes, they are green. We're not talking about a Olympic gold medalist. Even still, I call him my Muslim Sugar Ray Leonard. I call him my Muslim Sugar Ray Leonard. No fucking gold medal. That pedigree isn't there. He doesn't have necessarily, like you say, the IQ that he's displayed. He certainly hasn't displayed that yet of what a Sugar Ray Leonard would have been at his age. I get all of that. That's not where my comparison comes from. My comparison comes from the affability of the fighter. I believe the mentality of the fighter, which has been the buzzword the last couple of weeks, mentality of a fighter.
Mentality.
And that's what you're, not what?
Mentality.
And that's what you're referencing when you say bite down. Well, people are like, well, it doesn't matter the mentality of a fighter. It's just whether he's good enough or he's not good enough. Well, when you say a fighter needs to bite down, what are you talking about? Literally, you think the gum shield gives him more energy or makes his chin tougher? No, you're talking about mentality. When you talk about, when you want to accuse a guy of quitting, well, is he able to get up or not? Well, if he's able to get up and doesn't, or if he shouldn't be able to get up and does, what are we talking about? The blood vessels pumping through his legs or his mentality? If a guy is in the middle trading punches when he could box on the outside instead and make it a simpler, easier, less punishing night, but also a boring one where he maybe doesn't get a stoppage, but decides to trade in the middle of the ring and take some punches to give more punches than he's taking, well, what is that? That's mentality of a fighter. That is what he comes into the ring deciding to do. When you say why this could be a more difficult fight for Mason, then maybe some understand and break down what Bell is able to do. And while, later in the fight, we're going through layers, well, now you're talking about the mentality of Bell. And I'm talking about it too. How relaxed he is, how much pressure he feels or doesn't feel, how comfortable he is with Mason and feeling like he knows what Mason's going to do. Maybe he feels like Mason is a one or two dimensional fighter that he knows how to counter. And if that's the case and he's confident with that, and then what Mason shows him supports that, then his mentality will play a hand in this, because if it gets late in the fight and Mason is either in a very close fight or feels like he's losing, he might start pressing, looking for that knockout, looking to get inside and throw those shots that change the punch or change the fight, while Bell is comfortable and feeling good about being close in the fight, feeling good about maybe being edging it, and keeps doing what he's doing. And that sets up a dangerous proposition for the champion. All of these things are at play. So you don't ever tell me that mentality has nothing to do with the fight, or it can't change the outcome even if you're the underdog. This is another element in this fight that you have to consider, and it's an element in all fights that you have to consider. Just some are more prominent than others. So I like that these fights are coming back to back, because it gives us the opportunity sometimes to be referential to other fights and how people reacted to it. Just take that on board for a second and consider how big a fight we have here. And that's why I said Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns. Not because we've got a gold medalist or they're at that pedigree or none of these things. What I'm saying is, from the top rank perspective, from the promotion perspective, and like you said, a lot of fights aren't promoted well anymore. And I think by our estimation, well is different than what they think fight promotion is required of now. But those elements in society still exist. These guys represent communities. They represent their city, their state, their country. If it had been Cordina, I don't think it's bad to contrast a Philly fighter, American style that has been honed in a certain city, to a Puerto Rican style of American territory that's been honed from a certain part of the country that has a calling card, or a Mexican fighter versus a Puerto Rican fighter. Like, these kind of things are now considered to be inferring race, or like, you and your boy on, the other day talking about, an Italian fighter, or a certain type of Irish fight. They have styles. They have things that we know are kind of calling cards of the culture, that they fight a certain way, and you can contrast those things. And if it's a 4th of July, you can talk about the Revolutionary War and a British fighter coming over to America to kind of try to unseat the champion and take the belt back. We can talk about white and black. We can do that. You can talk about the black American fighter, as Turkey once did a bit ago, the best heavyweight champions that we need, the ones that bring the sport to another level, are black American heavyweights. We need a black American heavyweight champion. Those are his words, not mine. But he's referencing a time, a way in which you could speak about boxing that remains true. Two hometown fighters. Now, Bell is, an hour outside of Cleveland? He's at home. He might as well be from Cleveland, an hour outside of Cleveland, world title fight, last-minute replacement, on TNT, huge stage. Yes, the platform is big, but I believe the fight and even the inaugural show on TNT, whomever it is, could have been promoted bigger. I wish they had tethered it more to Boots and Zayas. I wish this thing was everywhere. I'm in Washington, D.C. right now. I wish they had this fight on the Mall, the 4th of July fight for the World Championship. I'd like to see Abdullah Mason promoted that way. I think he has that kind of media darling potential. He has that kind of affability and charisma and charm, and his story is fantastic. And if he can keep winning, I think he builds his superstardom forged by fire, which is the most American thing the most attractive kind of story, the kind of thing where everybody can get on board, and he's fucking Rocky running through the streets of Philly because everybody can relate to it. Everybody feels like he's representing something that's inside them. And to Saturday night, all of that is going to be put to the test. Because I respect Bell, I credit Bell. I think he's in a good position to make this a damn close fight. And if he gets washed, then my God, you got to give Abdullah Mason a ton of credit for doing that. And if the fight had been built up, even this fight, now with this replacement, had been built up, even in these few days that they have to do it, he'd get that credit. But that's why I say this fight may not get the attention it deserves until it's over. And it'll depend on how the fight is fought. If he does wash him, if Mason washes Bell, sadly, I don't think he will get the attention, or this fight will get the kind of notoriety that it deserves, because it'll look like he went in there and beat somebody that's a nobody, because most people don't know who Bell is, and they'll just assume that that was what was supposed to happen, an easy fight for him, and we move on. You know?
Quick technical amendment. It's funny because I said, Xander has to show up to box. Bam Rodriguez in the early rounds against Inoue has to download data. That I could just be wrong about that because it's like a losing mentality. So when I'm saying Albert Bell down the stretch might need to be more the sharpshooter, he certainly can't recklessly exchange with the bigger puncher, the more electric, snappy guy with the torque and Mason. But that's a lose. He may have to survive those tough moments and then bite down on his own gum shield and fight back and hold on to a lead if he has a lead down the stretch, not put his hands in his pocket like I said earlier. So I just want to amend that one technical thing, and he is a live dog. There's going to be some people that know boxing that look at Mason as plus 500 and take that bet Saturday night. And again, I think what excites me about Mason is when you look at Benavidez, when you look at Boots Ennis, Bam Rodriguez, Naoya Inoue, these fighters that are both simultaneously on the pound-for-pound type list and are pound-for-pound the most exciting fighters to watch on a regular basis each and every time out. I think Mason has that kind of upside and talent that he can join alongside them and be the fighter that has the talent, has the skill to be one of the best fighters in the world, but also one of the most exciting fighters in the world at the exact same time. Beterbiev was that a couple years ago, just recently, up until this recent layoff and age catching up to him. But back to Forged by Fire, that's a very interesting point that I've been evaluating for Abdullah Mason. And the question I have for it is, if he gets through the fire, and here's what's tough for him tomorrow night, what if he has to take a loss along the way? What if that's how his journey and his temperament is different than the undefeated champions I mentioned earlier, his older contemporaries in Haney and Stevenson and the both Davises, who are all got their O. All of them have their O. What if Mason, because he lacks some of that savvy and IQ and tutelage that they received, what if part of being forged by the fire includes an L in this era where taking an L is like a death sentence for a young fighter? And now not just the post-Floyd Mayweather undefeated era, but the post-Andre Ward and Terrence Crawford undefeated era. It has become the standard that you got to literally get through your whole career without losing, or else you are not going to be number one pound for pound like the three men I mentioned just now. What if Abdullah Mason, as fate would have it, or has to actually take that loss along the way? Hopefully for him, he doesn't. Hopefully he gets forged by the fire Saturday night, but keeps his O intact. So but that being aside,
it can't be now. It can't be now.
Yeah. Not against an Albert Bell. Respectfully to Albert Bell.
That I'm talking about. If anything, what I'm saying is going to come to fruition, that's what makes him special. That he will win fights like this. That he will win fights after this, where the cards might be stacked against him in the future, much more heavily so. Him being green, him not being pedigree, by you talking about how, his ring IQ, is going to need some schooling. The novelty of him, the superstar element of him, the narrative that will carry forward in him will be watching him figure it out in the fire and continue to emerge. If he gets burnt up, it ain't gonna work. He'll be eclipsed, and the road back will be too far. If somebody gives a blueprint on how to beat him, then the gap becomes too much. It's not gonna work. He's gotta win.
Okay, great stuff. Great stuff, Raheem. I really I'm a fan too. So what I'm wondering, okay, then if you can get through that fire unscathed, right, and make it out the other side at 25, 26, 27, this is where I'm going to take us now back to my video yesterday about what if he has the better upside than all of them, right? If I want to see, it's an experiment I have in watching these next several years. If you're forged by the fire and you get it out the mud, you get your ring IQ out the mud, and that's nothing against the other 4 champions I mentioned. There's nothing, hell, I mean, I'll take the advice from Jim Lampley and Max Kellerman and Larry Merchant and Stephen A. Smith. The guys that are succeeding at the highest level that are either doing it now or came before me, if they said, here's the game on this and this and that, I'm all ears. How could you not be? So it's not to take away from those guys learning from Floyd, learning from Terrence, learning from Andre. But what happens to the guy who had to accumulate it all on his own, to be forged through the fire, like you said? My experiment is if he gets through the other side of that and does actually accumulate all that savvy and IQ more so on his own, can he be better for it? Can he eclipse them, to use the word you just said? And this is where I want to throw it to you. I saw when I first told you about Abdullah Mason was last year. We did a live on my channel at 3 in the morning while I was at LaGuardia or JFK. I think I might have been at LaGuardia. And I had to wait for the gate to open at 5 a.m. And I said, you haven't seen Abdullah Mason yet, Raheem? This is your Muslim brother. This is the guy who's got next. And, so eventually you watched him. You fell in love. You love the kid. You think now you're calling him the Muslim Sugar Ray Leonard. So there you have it. But when I saw him that night, right, Keyshawn Davis would beat him right now. Gervonta Davis, to give him his credit, man, his first title-winning effort over Jose Pedraza at 22 was more impressive than Abdullah Mason's title-winning effort, which went life and death with Sam Noakes. Gervonta got him out of there midway through the fight. He stopped him. He knocked him out. It was a star-making performance at the Barclays Center 2017, right? And so Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson, those guys got hit less. They're smarter fighters than him at this age. Certainly right now. Keyshawn would be too much for him right now. That's why you said he was bullying him. But when I watched them that night at the MSG Theater, the first night Keyshawn Davis became world champion, knocking out Denis Berinchyk in 3 rounds, Abdullah fought a fighter, his name escapes me right now, who just a couple of months before went the distance with Rolly Romero, who that has aged well because Rolly went on to beat up Ryan and is a welterweight world champion right now. Rolly went the distance with this kid, and Abdullah dropped him 3 times and knocked him out in 5 rounds, right? It was quite the measuring stick performance. That night, I went, this kid's going to be better than Keyshawn Davis. It was just down to the torque that you touched on earlier. Sharpness, just the way punches are delivered. Now, at the championship level, pre-punch motion, feint, setup, positioning, IQ, versatility, all those things matter. But I'm talking electricity in the fists. I said that kid has more electricity in his fists than even Keyshawn, who is a top 10 pound-for-pound talent, who's a Hall of Fame talent, who might even be a generational fighter in his own right. And Haney and Stevenson and Davis have already proven their generational talents, still with a lot more story to be written in their careers. But I saw Mason with that electric torque, and again, he has a longer reach than all of them. And unlike Gervonta Davis, he's not quite the hitter that Gervonta is, but he's got a lot of power and snap, and he's got a much better frame for carrying up weight in the higher welterweight divisions than Gervonta Davis does. So even though those guys have their advantages over them, and they all seem to have better IQ than he had at this stage of their career, I would argue his upside, his ceiling, is higher than all of them. Am I tripping, Raheem? Check me. Don't hold back. Do you not see it that way?
I can't contrast your breakdown because it's not if I haven't seen it that way. I haven't put that much effort into seeing it at all. I haven't looked at these guys contrasted the way you have and broken it down mentally and statistically the way you just did. I'm learning listening to you. I will put it this way, though. It's like you have a huge trunk of tree, a large undefined log, and next to it sit all these sculptures, okay? And with every fight, as we move along, you see the craftsman chiseling away at this log. You see the craftsman, this trunk, taking shape. Now the difference is that the trunk is far taller than the already crafted and chiseled sculptures it sits next to. So how tall will this ultimately be? How regal can this thing become? As we watch the fat, as you might say, chipped away, as this thing begins to get sculpted in front of us. Again, the forged by fire really means that you're forging something as you see it under duress. So as we cut away all the shavings and the chippings and you cut into this log and you start to see definition, you start to see how tall it is, what shape it will be, how solid it will be, what kind of oak you're looking at, well, then you start to compare it to the already chiseled structures around it and say, well, this thing might be bigger than those. But it is yet undefined. We don't know if this thing will be cut down in the process. We don't know if this thing will be hollowed out by some fighter who has a 2-week notice. We don't know. But we are watching the craftsmanship happen, and as it comes into focus, it keeps looking bigger. It keeps looking taller. It keeps looking more defined and more attractive. And while, yes, all of this experience and knockout highlights and success from the fighters that you mentioned, the reason I think he can outshine them, while not talking about whether or not he's smarter in the ring or even has necessarily more pedigreed, honed talent, but he could be a bigger star than all of them, is because he has that intangible X factor. Nobody doesn't like Abdullah Mason, okay? That's the funny thing. Like, whoever you talk to, whether you're picking him or not, whether you think,
Give it time. They will.
Closer than not.
Give it time.
Right now, nobody doesn't like this guy. And if you've met him, if you've been in the presence of him and his family, if you've had the opportunity to be reached out for it's difficult not to like him. Not just to not like him. It's difficult to not actively be like, or at least root, like, I want this guy to succeed in life. If he's fighting your fighter, you want your fighter to beat him. But you also want him to leave the arena and have a good life. You're like, you know what? We want to beat this guy because my guy's facing this guy, but I want him to live well. I want him to go on to better and bigger things after my guy beats him. He's that kind of fighter. Now, to your point, give it time. Like I said on last week, as these guys get success and money changes them and spotlight and life can make a guy that you once knew somebody you never met. That's possible for anybody. But at this time right now, while we're talking about potential, while we're talking about being forged, while we're talking about the analogy of shaving this undefined hunk of wood into a sculpture to compete with the ones in his contemporary surroundings, the potential is greater than all of them. But there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
A lot of craftsmanship yet to be carved.
Yeah.
We've got to see what kind of wood is fortified here. We've got to see how solid it is. We've got to see in those moments when you don't have the pedigree to lean on, when your corner isn't as experienced as the other guy necessarily, when you might have to get creative in there, when you've got to make split decisions, when you've got to decide what the smart thing to do is, when maybe you got to get up off the canvas. Who knows but those challenges, when they come, we got to wait and see how you handle them, and then we'll know what this thing is made of. But because we've got so much woodwork left to do, and we kind of have already defined his contemporaries, the potential is there to be bigger than them all, if not better even. bigger, more of a draw, a more attractive piece of art to watch and to experience. And that is what makes a superstar like Sugar Ray Leonard. That is what makes the superstars of the past that we know and remember. People like you remember their records. Most people remember the feeling they gave them. Abdullah Mason is the kind of guy that gives you a feeling you want to keep.